As night settled softly over the ancient city, Rome did not fall silent all at once. It never truly did. Even as oil lamps dimmed and shutters closed, the stones themselves seemed to remember footsteps, voices, and the slow rhythm of daily life. Somewhere far from marble forums and proud temples, in the narrow streets where shadows clung to walls, the ordinary people of Rome continued their quiet routines. This was not the Rome of emperors and legions, but the Rome of hunger, habit, and small comforts found between long hours of labor. Imagine walking slowly through these streets, not as a visitor but as someone who belongs there, your sandals worn thin, your cloak light against the evening air. The smell reaches you first. Not the sweet incense of shrines, but warm bread, oil, smoke, and something faintly sour yet familiar. This is the smell of ancient Roman junk food, though no one would have called it that. To them, it was simply food eaten quickly, cheaply, and often standing in the street, food that filled the stomach without ceremony. Most Romans did not cook at home. Their apartments, stacked high in crowded buildings called insulae, were cramped and dangerous places for fire. Kitchens were rare. Instead, people relied on small street shops called thermopolia, where large clay jars were set into stone counters, their contents kept warm over coals. These counters faced the street, inviting passersby to stop, lean, and eat. The jars held stews, beans, lentils, grains soaked in broth, and sometimes meat, though often of questionable quality. The food was simple, repetitive, and deeply comforting. A laborer returning from the docks might spend a single copper coin on a bowl of chickpeas soaked in garum, the pungent fermented fish sauce that flavored nearly everything. Garum was strong, salty, and unmistakable. To modern senses it might seem overwhelming, but to Romans it was as common as salt itself. It added depth to otherwise bland grains and vegetables, making cheap food taste satisfying. Bread was everywhere. Not the fluffy loaves of later centuries, but dense, dark bread made from wheat or barley, sometimes mixed with bran or even ground legumes. Bakers rose before dawn, and their ovens glowed long before the sun. People bought bread still warm, tearing pieces off as they walked. Sometimes it was dipped in olive oil or wine, sometimes spread with cheese or crushed herbs. This was fast food, Roman style, eaten with fingers, crumbs falling onto the street stones. As you move deeper into the city, the sounds soften. Somewhere a donkey brays, a cart rattles, a distant laugh drifts through an open window. A vendor calls out softly, advertising sausages grilled over charcoal. These sausages, made from pork mixed with fat, herbs, and whatever scraps were available, were a favorite street snack. They were salty, greasy, and filling. For many Romans, this was indulgence. Meat was expensive, and a sausage eaten on the street felt like a small luxury at the end of a long day. Children darted between adults, clutching bits of bread or fried dough. One popular treat was something like a pancake or fritter, made from spelt flour and fried in oil. Sometimes honey was drizzled over it or dates crushed into the batter. These sweet foods were not everyday items, but when available, they were eagerly eaten. Sugar did not exist as we know it, so sweetness came from honey, figs, or dried fruit. The taste was gentle, not sharp, and it lingered pleasantly. Wine flowed constantly, though rarely in its pure form. Most Romans drank wine diluted with water, sometimes heated, sometimes spiced. On the street, wine sellers offered cheap cups to passersby. It was not about drunkenness but refreshment. The water of Rome, though carried by aqueducts, was not always trusted once it reached the city. Wine felt safer, more reliable. A cup of watered wine paired with bread or beans was a common meal, eaten quickly, without sitting down. As night deepened, the thermopolia remained open. Their counters glowed in lamplight, jars steaming faintly. Workers finishing late shifts stopped for food. Slaves sent on errands lingered briefly, savoring a rare moment to themselves. The food did not change much from day to day, and that sameness was part of its comfort. Lentils cooked until soft, flavored with garlic and herbs. Barley porridge, thick and warm. Stewed vegetables softened by hours of simmering. There was no concept of dieting, no fear of fat or salt. Food was fuel, pleasure, and necessity all at once. The rich dined extravagantly, but the poor found their own indulgences in these small meals. A particularly greasy sausage, an extra drizzle of oil, a piece of cheese added to bread, these were moments of quiet happiness. Far from the crowded streets, near the edges of the city, taverns offered something slightly different. These places were dim, smoky, and loud earlier in the evening, but now they were calming. A few patrons remained, speaking softly. Here, junk food took another form. Leftover stews reheated, olives soaked in brine, eggs boiled and eaten with salt. Sometimes fish, fried quickly and eaten with hands still smelling of oil. Fish was common, especially small fish caught near the coast and preserved with salt. Fried fish was sold wrapped in leaves or cloth, eaten while walking. Bones were spit onto the ground without concern. The street cleaners would come later. Rome was used to mess. It absorbed it, layered over it, and moved on. As you imagine this world, your pace slows. There is no hurry. The food is steady, predictable, and unremarkable, and that is precisely why it soothes. Ancient Roman junk food was not designed to impress but to sustain. It was eaten by millions, day after day, forming the quiet backbone of an empire. Think of a mason, hands rough with lime dust, sitting on a low step, tearing bread and dipping it into a bowl of warm beans. Think of a washerwoman sipping watered wine, sharing a fried cake with her child. Think of a soldier on leave, biting into a sausage and smiling briefly before the smile fades back into fatigue. These moments were repeated endlessly, across generations. The city breathes slowly now. Lamps flicker. A cat prowls near a discarded crust. Somewhere a pot simmers for the next day. The smells linger but soften, blending into the night air. Junk food, in this ancient sense, was never rushed for novelty. It was familiar, grounding, and dependable. Even the emperors knew this food. Though they feasted on peacock and oysters, they had grown up eating bread and olives, beans and wine. Some even missed it. Stories tell of rulers sneaking simple meals, craving the plain tastes of their youth. Food, after all, remembers us even when we forget ourselves. As you rest in this imagined Rome, the clatter fades completely. The street stalls close one by one, clay jars are covered. Coals dim. Tomorrow the same foods will return, unchanged, reliable as the rising sun. Bread will be baked. Beans will be soaked. Oil will be poured. People will eat standing, walking, living. Let your thoughts drift like smoke from a dying fire. Ancient Rome continues without effort, without your attention. The junk food of its streets remains warm, simple, and unimportant in the best possible way. There is nothing to solve, nothing to remember, nothing to prepare for. Only the slow, steady rhythm of ordinary life, carrying you gently towards sleep. The night does not end abruptly in Rome. It loosens its grip slowly, as if the darkness itself is reluctant to leave the familiar streets. Somewhere beyond the walls, a rooster calls too early and then falls silent again. The city breathes in, breathes out. Even in rest, Rome never entirely stops. In the quiet hours before dawn, the leftovers of the evening still linger. A half-eaten loaf rests on a stone ledge. A broken piece of fried dough lies forgotten near a doorway. These small traces tell stories no historian would bother to write, yet they matter deeply to the people who lived them. Food here was never wasted deliberately. Hunger was too close, too familiar. Even junk food, even scraps, carried value. In one narrow alley, a baker's apprentice wakes before the sun. His stomach is already empty. He wraps his cloak tighter and steps outside, moving carefully so as not to wake the neighbors. The street is cool now, the stones damp. He breaks a piece of yesterday's bread, hard around the edges, softer in the middle. He dips it into watered wine saved from the night before. It is not a meal worth remembering, but it is enough. Enough was often all anyone hoped for. As ovens are lit across the city, the smell of bread begins to rise again. It mixes with smoke and damp air, creating something comforting and familiar. This smell alone could pull people from sleep. Bread was more than food. It was reassurance. The knowledge that something solid would exist today, as it did yesterday. The thermopolia begin to stir as well. Owners lift covers from clay jars, stir thick mixtures of grains and legumes, add herbs, salt, and a splash of garum. The same flavors, repeated endlessly, become soothing rather than boring. The tongue expects them. The body welcomes them. Morning workers arrive first. Dockhands, porters, messengers, they eat standing, barely stopping. A ladle dips into a jar, pours warm stew into a bowl. Bread follows. A quick swallow of diluted wine. Coins clink softly. No one lingers. The food is not meant to be admired. It is meant to carry you forward. Children appear next. sent by parents with small coins wrapped in cloth.
They point eagerly at fritters frying in oil.
The vendor smiles, drops batter into bubbling fat. The sound alone is comforting, steady, predictable. When the fritter is handed over, warm and slightly sweet, the child's face softens. For a moment the world feels kind. As the day unfolds, the streets fill again, and with them, the rhythm of eating. Junk food is eaten in pieces, in pauses, in stolen moments between labor. There are no tables, no courses. Just hands, mouths, and hunger meeting briefly before parting again. Olives are sold by the handful, salty and sharp. Cheese, crumbly and strong-smelling, is wrapped in leaves. Dried figs are chewed slowly, their sweetness unfolding over time. Nuts are cracked with stones and shared casually. None of this is fancy, yet it fills the city with quiet satisfaction. Even the poorest Romans had access to some form of food each day, if only bread and porridge. The state understood the danger of hunger. Grain shipments arrived from distant provinces, feeding millions. From this grain came the cheapest foods, transformed into loaves, gruels, and street meals. Junk food was supported by empire itself. By midday the heat settles in. Eating slows. Vendors retreat into shade. Food sits warm but untouched for longer stretches. People sip wine or water, conserving energy. Hunger waits patiently. It always returns. When afternoon fades, eating resumes. This is when the heartiest junk foods appear. Thick stews with bits of meat. Sausages grilled until fat drips and hisses. Fish fried crisp and eaten immediately. These foods smell stronger, call louder. They promise comfort at the end of effort. A man pauses on his way home, tired beyond words. He spends his last coin on a sausage, eats it slowly, eyes closed for a moment. This small pleasure steadies him. Tomorrow will be much the same. That is not a burden, it is a certainty. As evening approaches again, lamps are lit. The cycle repeats. The same jars, the same counters, the same flavors. And yet no one complains. The food does not surprise, and that is why it soothes. It asks nothing of you. It simply exists. In this Rome, junk food is not indulgence in excess. It is routine, survival, comfort woven together. It is the quiet background of lives rarely recorded. Emperors rise and fall, but bread is baked. Wars are fought, but beans still simmer. History shouts, but food whispers. Let your thoughts rest here, among warm stones and steady smells. There is no rush. The city has all the time it needs. The food will be there when hunger returns. And until then, the night settles gently once more, wrapping ancient Rome and you in a calm, unbroken quiet. The quiet deepens, not into emptiness, but into a softer layer of sound. Rome knows how to be still without becoming silent. Somewhere water moves through stone channels, unseen and steady. Somewhere a door closes carefully. Somewhere someone chews the last bite of the day and lets the hunger finally rest. In the darker corners of the city, where the lamps are fewer and the stones more worn, the poorest meals are eaten. Here, junk food is pared down to its simplest form. A bowl of pulse, a thick porridge made from grain boiled until it barely remembers being separate kernels. It is stirred slowly, eaten slowly, because there is nothing else to rush toward. A pinch of salt, a drizzle of oil if one is lucky. Sometimes nothing more than warm grain and water. Yet even this carries comfort. Warmth matters. Fullness matters. An old woman sits near a wall, her back curved like a question never answered. She eats in small motions, careful not to spill. Each spoonful feels like a promise kept. She has eaten this same food for decades. It has carried her through summers and winters, through births and funerals, through days when Rome felt endless and nights when it felt unbearably close. Junk food, humble and plain, has been her constant companion. Not far away, a group of young men share a jug of wine and pieces of bread torn unevenly. They laugh quietly, not wanting to draw attention. Their laughter rises and falls like breath. One dips bread into a shared bowl of beans, another adds olives crushed roughly with a stone. This is a feast, in its own way. Shared food tastes better. Even the simplest junk food becomes rich when it is divided among friends. As hours pass, the city leans towards sleep again. The vendors close. The last sausages are sold. Oil cools in pans. Jars are scraped clean. Tomorrow they will be filled again with the same foods, the same flavors, unchanged by ambition. Consistency is the luxury here. Somewhere behind closed doors, a family eats together. The father brings home bread and cheese. The mother adds leftover vegetables from earlier. A child gnaws thoughtfully on a crust. They eat without ceremony, without conversation for long stretches. Eating is not an event. It is a rhythm, like breathing. No one thinks to write it down. Outside, the street smells shift as food fades and stone returns. Smoke thins. Oil no longer dominates the air. The city smells of dust, water, and age. Yet traces remain. If you breathe deeply, you can still sense bread, salt, warmth. Memory clings to the air. Junk food in ancient Rome leaves no monuments. No inscriptions praise it. No statues honor it. And yet, without it, the city would collapse inward. Armies would not march. Builders would not lift stones. Mothers would not wait before dawn. Children would not grow tall enough to inherit the streets. This food is invisible history. It passes through hands, mouths, bodies, and disappears, leaving only strength behind. It does not ask to be admired. It only asks to be eaten. As you linger here, time stretches. The boundaries between hours blur. Morning and night feel similar when hunger and satisfaction follow each other so reliably. The empire seems less important than the next loaf, the next bowl, the next pause to eat. Imagine yourself sitting on a low step, the stone cool beneath you. In your hands, a piece of bread. It is rough, imperfect, comforting. You chew slowly. There is nowhere else you need to be. The city accepts this stillness. It has seen millions of moments like it. Let the thoughts drift. Let the smells fade gently. Let Rome continue without effort. The junk food of its streets has done its work for the day. It will return, unchanged, patient, ready. And in this steady repetition, sleep comes easily, like a familiar flavor you have tasted all your life and never needed to name. The moment stretches unbroken like a long breath held without strain. Rome rests inside itself, layered with memory, weight, and quiet endurance. Even when no one is eating, food remains present in thought, in habit, in expectation. Hunger is never far, but neither is the answer to it. In the deepest part of the night, when even the watchmen move slowly, there are still those awake. A pot simmers gently in a small room above a shop. Inside it, grain softens patiently, becoming tomorrow's first meal. The person tending it does not rush. The spoon moves in slow circles. The same circles made every night, the same motion passed down without words. This porridge will be eaten quickly later, standing half aware, but now it is treated with care. Even junk food begins with attention. Elsewhere, a traveler sleeps near the city gate, his pack beside him. Inside it, wrapped carefully, is a piece of hard bread and a few dried figs. Road food, food meant to last, to survive heat and time. He will eat it tomorrow without pleasure or complaint. It will be enough. Enough has always been the measure. Rome dreams through its people. Bakers dream of ovens. Vendors dream of full jars. Workers dream of meals already eaten and meals yet to come. Even in sleep, the body remembers routines. The stomach anticipates morning. When dawn finally begins to lift the darkness, it does so quietly. No announcement, no fanfare. Just a lightening of the sky, a softening of shadows. The city wakes not all at once, but in waves. Somewhere a door creaks open. Somewhere a fire is coaxed back to life. The first smells return, gentle and familiar. Bread again, always bread. Steam rises from pots. Oil warms. The cycle begins again without reflection. There is no sense of repetition being dull. Repetition is safety. A man eats the same breakfast he ate yesterday. A woman prepares the same street food she has prepared for years. A child complains half-heartedly, then eats anyway. Junk food does not promise excitement. It promises continuity. As the streets fill, food passes from hand to hand. Coins exchange places. Bowls are filled and emptied. Hunger appears and disappears, again and again. The city moves forward on these small transactions. There is comfort in knowing what comes next. In knowing that when hunger arrives, there will be something warm, something salty, something familiar waiting. Ancient Rome depended on this certainty more than it depended on marble or gold. And so the day unfolds gently, without urgency. The empire hums quietly, powered by bread, beans, oil, and patience. Junk food sustains it, unnoticed, reliable, constant. Let your mind rest in this rhythm. Nothing changes suddenly here. Nothing demands attention. The streets, the food, the people continue as they always have, and in that sameness, there is peace. Rome carries on, eating and sleeping and eating, endlessly calm. And you can drift with it, unhurried, untroubled, letting the slow heartbeat of an ancient city guide you deeper into rest. The city does not measure itself in words or hours. It measures itself in habits, in footsteps worn into stone, in hands that know exactly how much grain to scoop without looking, in mouths that recognize a meal before it is even tasted. Rome continues because it has always continued, and the food that fills it is part of that quiet endurance. As the morning stretches onward, the streets grow warmer. And with warmth comes appetite again, not sharp, not urgent, just present. A vendor wipes his hands on his tunic and adjusts the jars set into his counter. One holds lentils cooked until they have forgotten their shape. Another holds barley softened into something almost creamy. A third contains cabbage and onions stewed so long they have become sweet. There is no surprise here. People approach already knowing what they will eat. A woman stops, drops a coin into the vendor's palm, and accepts a wooden bowl. She eats slowly, standing close to the counter, eyes half closed. The food is warm. That alone is enough to make her pause. Warmth matters in a world where comfort is rarely elaborate. Nearby, a man dips bread into oil, then into salt. The grains of salt crunch softly between his teeth. This is one of the oldest meals in the city, perhaps older than the city itself. Grain, oil, salt. Civilization reduced to its essentials. Junk food in Rome is not loud. It does not demand attention with color or novelty. It simply exists where hunger and people meet. The flavors are muted, rounded by repetition. Strong tastes like garum or vinegar appear only to deepen what is already known. Nothing shocks the tongue awake. Everything soothes it back into routine. As the sun rises higher, the poorer districts stir fully. Children run errands. Slaves carry baskets. Messengers weave through crowds. Many eat while moving, chewing without thinking, swallowing without stopping. Food becomes background, as constant as breathing. Someone drops a piece of bread. It is picked up immediately, brushed off, eaten without hesitation. The street is not clean, but hunger is more pressing than worry. Waste is unthinkable. In the shade of an archway, an old soldier sits with his back against stone that has outlived empires already. He eats dried meat slowly, savoring each bite, not for taste but for memory. This food traveled with him once, packed for marshes. Now it marks the passing of time. He eats and remembers, then eats and forgets again. The thermopolia grow busy by midday. Steam rises from jars. The smell thickens. Sweat mixes with food and smoke. No one complains. This is the smell of life continuing. A bowl is passed over a counter. Another coin clinks. Another hunger quiets. Fish sellers appear, their baskets heavy with small, silver bodies. Some are fried immediately, crackling in oil. Others are salted, meant for later. Fried fish is eaten quickly while it is still hot, fingers shining with grease. Bones crunch softly. Salt lingers on the lips. A child laughs when oil drips onto his hand. His mother wipes it away and shakes her head, but she is smiling. Even mess has its place here. The city absorbs everything. As afternoon approaches, eating slows again. The heat presses down. People sip wine, dilute it until it barely resembles what was poured from the jar. The taste is thin, but it cools the mouth. Cooling matters now. In quieter streets, those who can afford it prepare food at home. A pot of beans is reheated. Bread is sliced carefully. Cheese is shaved thin to make it last longer. Even here, meals resemble street food more than feasts. Junk food crosses boundaries of class more easily than anything else. The rich may eat more elaborately, but they recognize these foods. They grew up with them. They crave them when tired or ill. No banquet replaces the comfort of bread dipped in oil. As shadows lengthen, hunger returns, steady and predictable. The evening meal is the most anticipated, not because it is large, but because it signals rest. Work ends. Eating marks the transition from effort to stillness. Sausages appear again, hanging from hooks, darkened by smoke. Fat sizzles as they hit the grill. The smell spreads quickly. People follow it without thinking. A sausage eaten at dusk feels different from one eaten at noon. It feels earned. A man eats alone, leaning against a wall. He chews slowly, watching the sky change color. For a moment, he feels balanced. Not happy exactly, but complete. Food has that power when expectations are low and needs are simple. As night gathers, the city softens once more. The loudest hunger has been answered. lamps flicker on. Vendors count coins, jars empty. Food settles into stomachs, doing its quiet work. Somewhere, bread dough rises for tomorrow. Somewhere, beans soak overnight. Somewhere, fish is packed in salt. The future is prepared without ceremony. Rome does not worry about variety. It worries about continuity. Junk food provides that. The same tastes, the same textures, the same motions repeated endlessly. In repetition, the mind rests. You can feel that rest now, spreading slowly, like warmth after a meal. The details blur gently. The city hums, low and steady. Nothing demands attention. Nothing surprises. Ancient Rome continues to eat, to sleep, to wake, to eat again. The junk food of its streets remains humble, constant, and quietly essential. Stay here as long as you like. There is no ending waiting. Only another loaf, another bowl, another calm moment, drifting naturally into the next. The rhythm continues without effort, like a tide that never questions why it rises or falls. Rome moves forward on familiar paths, guided less by clocks than by hunger and relief from it. When the body knows it will be fed, the mind loosens its grip on worry. Night settles again, and this time it feels thicker, slower, as if the city itself is ready to rest more deeply. The streets are quieter now, not empty, but softened. Footsteps sound farther away. Voices drop lower. Lamps glow like small, patient stars set close to the ground. In a small room above a closed shop, a family finishes its last meal of the day. The food is simple, bread broken by hand, olives passed from palm to palm. A bowl of leftover lentils warmed just enough to be comforting. No one rushes. Eating slowly at night feels different. Each bite stretches time instead of filling it. The youngest child grows sleepy before the bowl is empty. His chewing slows, then stops. Bread rests forgotten in his hand. Someone gently takes it, wraps it for tomorrow. Nothing is thrown away. Tomorrow is always part of tonight. Outside, a stray dog noses at the edge of the street, searching for scraps. He finds a crust, hard but edible, and settles down to gnaw at it patiently. Even the animals of Rome live on the remains of its junk food, woven into the same cycle of use and reuse. Farther along, a watchman pauses near a closed thermopolium. He knows this spot well. He has eaten here many times, leaning against the same counter. Tonight there is nothing left, but the memory of warmth lingers. He adjusts his cloak and moves on, comforted anyway. Above the city the sky clears. Stars appear, unbothered by empire. Below them, Rome digests. Food turns into strength, into breath, into sleep. This transformation is invisible, quiet, and constant. In another part of the city, a pot of beans sits forgotten on low coals, kept warm just in case someone wakes hungry. The beans have been cooked so long they barely need chewing. They are soft enough for the tired, the old, the sick. Junk food adapts itself without complaint. The smell of beans, faint and steady, fills the room. It does not stimulate appetite so much as reassure it. Food is here. You will not be empty if you wake. And people do wake, sometimes. A bad dream, a crying child, a restless thought. When they do, they eat a little, not from hunger, but from habit. A bite of bread grounds the body. A sip of wine calms the chest. Then sleep returns. Rome has learned this over centuries. Food is not only for hunger. It is for steadiness. As the hours pass, the night thins again. Somewhere far away, grain ships sit heavy in the harbor, waiting. Somewhere else, fields rest under stars. The journey from field to street to stomach feels long when written, but in life it is simply assumed. Grain will arrive, bread will be made. Junk food will appear where it always does. The first hint of morning comes quietly. Not light yet, just a change in the air. The city stirs in response, though no one gives the signal. Bakers wake. Fires are lit. Dough is shaped by hands that know the motion better than thought. Soon, the smell of fresh bread will move through the streets again, pulling people gently from sleep. It always does. The smell does not command. It invites. Another day will begin exactly as the last one ended, with food that asks nothing more than to be eaten. The same bowls, the same counters, the same flavors waiting patiently. There is no pressure here to remember details, to follow a story, to reach a conclusion. Rome does not conclude. It continues. Let your thoughts slow to match it. Let repetition become comfort. Let familiarity soften the edges of awareness. Ancient Rome eats again and again and again, steady as breath, gentle as sleep. The city remains unhurried, moving at a pace that does not notice itself. Time here is not counted in minutes but in meals, and even those pass without ceremony. Rome exists in a long, steady present, where hunger arrives softly and leaves just as gently. As the new day settles into itself, people eat without thinking about eating. A porter lifts a sack onto his shoulder, bites into bread between movements, chews while walking. The bread is firm, slightly sour, familiar. He does not pause to taste it. Taste has already been memorized. The body accepts it gratefully and moves on. Near a fountain, a woman rinses a cup, fills it with watered wine and drinks slowly. The water splashes softly behind her, a constant sound that blends with voices and footsteps. She eats a handful of olives, pressing the pits carefully into a fold of cloth. Even waste is managed calmly, nothing abrupt, nothing careless. Junk food in Rome often travels. Bread wrapped in cloth. Cheese tucked into a pouch. Dried fruit carried in a pocket. Eating happens wherever people happen to be. On steps, against walls, beneath arches. The city becomes a dining room without boundaries. In the shade of a portico, an elderly man eats barley porridge from a chipped bowl. He eats slowly, not because he must, but because he has learned that slowness makes food last longer, not in quantity, but in comfort. Each spoonful warms him from inside, spreading outward. He does not rush warmth away. The sound of cooking drifts through open doorways. Pots bubbling, oil heating. The same sounds echo from street to street, overlapping gently. These are not sounds of excitement. They are sounds of assurance. At a street corner, a thermopolium opens fully for the day. The jars are filled, their surfaces glistening. Someone tastes the stew, adds salt, stirs again. Another spoonful, another adjustment. The goal is not perfection. The goal is sameness. Customers want what they expect. A familiar man arrives, nods, accepts his bowl. He eats standing, leaning his hip against stone. He says nothing. The vendor says nothing. Words are unnecessary. This exchange has happened hundreds of times before and will happen hundreds more. Children appear again, drawn by smells rather than schedules. They cluster near counters, watching oil bubble, bread break, bowls fill. They learn without being taught. This is how you eat. This is where food comes from. This is what hunger sounds like when it quiets. As the day grows warmer, eating spaces stretch outward. People sit on low walls, on steps, on the ground. Junk food adapts easily to any place. It does not require balance or ceremony. It fits into hands shaped by work. Fish sellers call softly, their voices rhythmic, almost musical. A few fish are bought, fried quickly, eaten immediately. Fingers grow shiny with oil. Someone wipes their hands on a tunic without concern. Cloth can be washed. Hunger cannot be ignored. In quieter streets, bread sellers pass with baskets balanced expertly. Loaves knock gently against one another as they walk. The sound is dull and comforting. Bread is heavy. Bread is real. Someone buys a loaf larger than usual, tearing off a piece before even turning away. The crust cracks softly. Steam escapes. The smell alone feels like nourishment. Afternoon arrives without announcement. The heat presses down again, slowing movement, slowing appetite. People drink more than they eat now. Wine thinned until it barely stains the cup. Water drawn from fountains, cool and refreshing. Food waits patiently. It knows it will be needed again. In the stillness, the city hums quietly. Insects buzz. Fabric rustles. Somewhere someone snores lightly in the shade. Eating pauses, but it does not disappear. It rests. Later, when shadows lengthen, hunger wakes once more. The body remembers evening food. The heavier stews return. The sausages. The warm grains meant to last through the night. People gather without planning. They stand near familiar counters, near familiar smells. They eat and talk softly, or not at all. The food does not require commentary. A woman breaks bread and shares it with someone beside her without discussion. Sharing feels natural here. Junk food is easy to divide. It does not belong to ceremony or status. It belongs to need. As darkness returns, the city settles into itself again. Eating slows. The last bowls are emptied. The last coins exchanged. Vendors cover jars, bank fires, stretch tired arms. Above, the sky darkens gradually, without drama. Below, stomachs fill. Thoughts soften. Muscles loosen. Sleep begins to prepare itself quietly. Somewhere a final meal is eaten by lamplight. Bread dipped into oil. A sip of wine. A moment of stillness. The body recognizes this signal. The day is ending, Rome exhales. Food has done its work again. It has carried people through effort, through heat, through worry. Now it carries them toward rest. Let the rhythm hold you. Let the sameness become gentle. There is no need to remember each scene. They blend together naturally, like meals remembered only by the feeling they left behind. Ancient Rome continues, fed by simple food and quiet repetition. And in that steady flow, sleep comes easily, like the familiar weight of bread resting warm in your hands. The stillness deepens again, not suddenly, but the way a room grows quieter when everyone has finally settled. Rome rests inside layers of habit, and those habits hold it gently in place. Food has moved from hands to stomachs, from smell to memory, and now it does its quiet work unseen. In the darker hours, the city seems to listen to itself. The sound of footsteps becomes rare, each one distinct. Somewhere, a latch clicks softly. Somewhere else, a lamp is turned down, its flame shrinking to a small, patient glow. The streets no longer ask for attention. It is eaten slowly, almost without hunger, more out of reassurance than need. Chewing steadies the breath. Swallowing settles the chest. Sleep returns easily after that. This is how food works here. It does not excite, it anchors. Outside, a cat moves along the wall, silent and careful. It pauses where scraps sometimes appear, finds nothing, and moves on without distress. Tomorrow there will be something. There always is. The night watch passes through the streets, staffs tapping lightly against stone. They know which thermopolia open early, which bakers are generous, which corners smell of food even when nothing is visible. Knowledge of food is knowledge of survival. It is passed quietly, without writing. As the night thins toward morning, the air changes again. Not light yet, but possibility. Fires are stirred, ashes glow. Dough that rested all night is touched, pressed, shaped. Hands move confidently, remembering motions older than memory. The first loaves slide into ovens. Heat builds. Soon the smell will rise and spread, flowing through streets and into sleeping rooms. It will wake people gently, not with urgency, but with familiarity. People eat standing, sitting, walking. The city accepts all of it. Food belongs everywhere here. It fits into the cracks of daily life, filling spaces that might otherwise hold worry or fatigue. There is no rush to improve the food, to make it new. Newness would disrupt the rhythm. Familiarity is valued more than excitement. Junk food is trusted precisely because it does not change. As the day grows brighter, voices return. The farmer, the miller, the baker, the seller, the eater. Then nothing remains but energy, warmth, and memory. This quiet transformation happens thousands of times a day, unnoticed, essential. Rome does not marvel at this. It relies on it. And so the hours pass again, gently layered, one meal folding into the next. Junk food continues to do what it has always done. Sustain, steady, repeat. Let your thoughts drift with it.
There is no destination here, no ending to reach.
Only the slow, comforting knowledge that when hunger comes, something simple and familiar will answer it. The city breathes. The food waits. Sleep moves closer, soft and unforced, like evening settling over warm stone once more. The rhythm holds, steady and unbroken, like a hand resting lightly on your back. Rome does not hurry you. It has learned that everything arrives when it is ready, especially hunger, and especially its answer. In the middle hours of the day, when the sun rests high and the streets shimmer faintly, eating becomes quieter again.
Not absent, just subdued.
A man sits on the edge of a step, his shadow short beneath him, chewing bread slowly while watching dust drift through the air. Each bite is unremarkable, and that is what makes it peaceful. There is no expectation attached to this food, it does not need to impress. It only needs to be there. Nearby, a woman unwraps a piece of cheese from cloth softened by use. The cheese is sharp, strong enough that only a little is needed. She breaks off a small piece, pairs it with bread, and saves the rest. Her hands know exactly how much to eat and how much to keep. The body learns these balances over time, without instruction. The streets themselves seem to recognize meal times. In the heat, they grow still. In the cool, they fill again. Food moves in waves, just like people. When one fades, another returns. Under an arch, two men share a bowl of lentils. One holds it steady, the other eats first. Then they switch. No words pass between them. The sharing feels older than language, practiced until it no longer needs explanation. Junk food becomes something gentle here, something that binds without ceremony. Somewhere deeper in the city, a small tavern opens its doors wider as afternoon drifts toward evening. Inside, the air is heavy with oil and smoke. Bowls are stacked, chipped but clean. The food served here is thicker, richer, meant to linger. Stews cooked from scraps, flavored heavily with garum and herbs to hide nothing and reveal everything at once.
A man eats slowly, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand.
He sighs after the last bite, not dramatically, just enough to mark the moment. Eating is over, that is all. Outside again, the city prepares for the return of evening hunger. Vendors restock what they can, bread sellers count loaves. Sausage makers check their fires. Everything aligns itself naturally, without command. Children drift back into the streets, newly energetic as the heat fades. They snack on dried fruit, on crusts, on whatever can be spared. Their eating is careless and joyful, crumbs scattered freely. No one scolds them for it. Crumbs belong to the city as much as stones do. As shadows lengthen, the smells grow stronger once more. Oil heats, fat sizzles, steam rises. The city breathes these scents in deeply, as if remembering something essential. People gather again at familiar corners. The same counters, the same jars, the same motions. Hands reach out, bowls are filled, coins pass silently. Eating resumes. Someone leans against a wall, eyes half closed, chewing slowly. Someone else eats quickly, eager to get home. Both are right. Junk food fits every pace. The sky darkens gradually, turning from pale to deep, from open to enclosed. Lamps flicker to life. Their light catches on oil-slicked fingers, on bread crusts, on steam curling upward.
The scene feels timeless,
Unchanging. Food tastes better at night, not because it is different, but because it arrives after effort. The body recognizes this. The mind softens in response.
Later, much later, when the last vendor has closed and the last bowl has been scraped clean, the city grows quiet again.
Not empty, just held. Food lingers in the air, in memory, in the warmth settling behind ribs. Muscles loosen, thoughts slow. Rome has eaten. Rome is satisfied. For now, let yourself stay here, in this moment that does not rush toward anything else. The city will repeat itself tomorrow and the next day, and long after this moment passes. Bread will be baked. Beans will be cooked. Oil will warm. Hunger will arrive, and food will answer. Nothing more is required. And as Rome settles once again into its familiar quiet, sleep moves closer, guided by the same gentle repetition that has carried the city and its people through countless nights before. The quiet after eating has its own texture. It is heavier than silence, warmer, like a blanket laid carefully over the city. Rome knows this feeling well. It arrives every evening, dependable as the setting sun, and it asks nothing in return. In a small courtyard, someone rinses a bowl and sets it upside down to dry. Water drips slowly from the rim, each drop falling with a soft, patient sound. The meal is finished, but its presence lingers in the simple act of cleaning, of preparing for the next time hunger appears. Everything here is connected by small, ordinary gestures. A man stretches out on a low bed, stomach comfortably full, not heavy, not empty. This balance is familiar. He does not think about what he ate, only that eating is done. His breathing slows without instruction. Sleep approaches without resistance. Outside, the stones still hold warmth from the day. A woman sits on her doorstep, enjoying the last moments of evening air. She nibbles the final piece of bread saved deliberately for this quiet pause. Eating now feels almost ceremonial, not because it is special, but because it is unhurried. She chews slowly, watching shadows move along the walls. Somewhere nearby, a pot lid is placed gently over food meant for morning. The sound is soft, final, reassuring. Tomorrow has already been acknowledged. There is nothing else to plan. Rome has learned that life does not need constant variation to feel complete. The same foods, eaten in the same places, by the same hands, create a rhythm strong enough to carry generations. Junk food, humble and plain, becomes tradition through repetition alone. In the deeper night, even memory begins to soften. The exact taste of bread fades, replaced by the feeling it left behind: warmth, stability, enough. The body remembers these better than flavor. A breeze moves through the streets, lifting the smell of old smoke and stone. Food scents have mostly faded now, but not entirely. They never do. Somewhere, grain waits. Somewhere, oil rests. Somewhere, hunger sleeps lightly, ready to wake when called. The city dreams in fragments, a loaf breaking open, a bowl filling, a hand passing food to another hand. These images drift through the collective sleep, gentle and unremarkable. As hours pass, the night thins again, though no one marks the moment. Time here is not sharp. It blurs softly at the edges, like lamplight against plaster. Eventually, the faintest hint of morning returns. Not brightness, just a sense of beginning. Fires will be lit. Dough will be shaped. Jars will be uncovered. The same foods will appear again, unchanged, reliable. Rome will wake hungry, and Rome will eat. Until then, the city rests, full and calm, supported by the simplest meals and the deepest habits. Nothing presses forward. Nothing pulls away. Stay here in this gentle pause. Let the repetition soothe you. Let the certainty of warmth and bread and quiet streets ease your thoughts. Ancient Rome continues, steady and patient, and there is no need to follow it anywhere. You can rest right here, carried softly by the same rhythm that has held the city through countless nights, drifting easily, comfortably, into sleep. The city remains quiet, but it is not lifeless. Even in the stillest hours, Rome breathes softly through its stones, through its walls, through the air thick with the memory of food, of warmth, of routine. Every surface, every corner carries the echo of meals eaten, shared, or simply finished in silence. In a small alley, a vendor checks his empty jars one last time before finally leaving. The jars, cleaned and waiting, reflect the dim lamplight. He runs his hands over them, smoothing clay that has held centuries of soups, stews, beans, and grains. Each jar is a small repository of sustenance, a witness to countless small satisfactions. Tonight, they rest. Tomorrow, they will feed again. A mother, seated on a low step with her children close, folds their blankets more tightly around them. She pats each child's shoulder, feeling the rise and fall of tiny breaths, remembering the bread, the lentils, the oil, the occasional sweet from earlier. Meals provide more than fullness here. They provide a quiet rhythm that underpins safety, a steady pulse that hums through the family's life. Outside, a stray dog curls around a discarded crust, chewing lazily. Its movements are unhurried, deliberate, absorbed in the simple act of eating. Even animals understand the rhythm. Hunger comes, food responds, and rest follows. No more, no less. Somewhere higher, in a building above the street, a young apprentice rests after helping bake early loaves. He lies back, eyes half closed, and imagines the rising dough, the warmth of the ovens, the steam curling from pots of beans. These images are soothing. They speak of continuity, of a world that remains predictable and safe. The lamps along the streets flicker slightly in the evening air. Shadows stretch and fold over stone, over brick, over rough plaster walls. The smell of yesterday's meals lingers faintly: bread, oil, salt, garum, smoke though softened by time. These scents carry memory, comfort, reassurance. Even when the body is not hungry, the mind knows what will come, and it relaxes. In a quiet room above a thermopolium, a small pot simmers. It is nothing elaborate. Grain and beans, seasoned simply, meant to last into the morning. No hands hover over it. No one worries. The food simply exists, waiting, ready. Its presence alone is enough to soothe the uncertainty of the night. A lone figure moves silently through the streets, carrying a small loaf wrapped in cloth. The person pauses occasionally, leaning against a wall, tasting the bread slowly, deliberately. It is neither indulgence nor necessity. It is habit. It is comfort. It is life continuing uninterrupted. The city itself seems to exhale. Noise has faded almost entirely. Even the faraway shouts of watchmen are now muffled. The cobblestones, warmed and then cooled through countless days and nights, hold the quiet like a soft pulse. Each step, each breath, each heartbeat belongs to the city as much as the stones themselves. Food has done its work. Not in grandeur, not in abundance, but in small, patient ways. Hunger has been met, warmth has been offered. Life continues. And as it does, sleep drifts closer, slow, gentle, unhurried. Even as the first faint hints of dawn stretch across the horizon, the city remains calm. Bakers will soon rise, ovens will glow, and jars will be filled. The smell of fresh bread, warm porridge, and heated oil will return, pulling people gently from their sleep, guiding them into another day of quiet rhythm. Rome does not rush. Rome does not demand. Rome simply continues, carried by the same steady pulse of food and habit, feeding bodies, soothing minds, and marking the endless, unbroken cycle of life. Let yourself drift here with it. Let the repetition, the certainty, the quiet comfort of bread and beans and oil guide you deeper into rest. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is expected. Sleep comes gently, cradled by the rhythm of an ancient city that has known hunger, fullness, and calm for centuries.